Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising today to invade the last Hamas stronghold in the city of Rafah, whether there's a ceasefire deal or not. We'll look at why Rafah is so important to Hamas and Israel. Israelis traveling to the Western Wall in Jerusalem during Passover despite the ongoing war to receive a special priestly blessing. A shocking tragedy in North Carolina as 4 law enforcement officers are killed in a shootout as they tried to arrest a criminal. And what do parents do when their child suddenly decides to change gender? We're going to show you how the church is providing support with ministries offering resources and other practical help. All those stories and more ahead today right here on CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin this half hour in Israel, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is promising to invade the last Hamas stronghold in Rafah, with or without a deal for a ceasefire. That promise coming as Israel and Hamas have been in talks for a possible hostage release and a temporary truce. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is scheduled to arrive in Israel Tuesday on the second leg of his Middle East trip. In Saudi Arabia on Monday, Blinken put the burden on Hamas to accept what he says is an extraordinary offer by Israel.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas.
Hamas says it's reviewing the proposal. Without a ceasefire, Israel is poised to enter Rafah and potentially finish the war against Hamas in Gaza. Rafah is key since it holds the last remaining Hamas battalions, their top leaders, and the strategic tunnels on the Egyptian border. Those tunnels are the lifeline where Hamas gets resupplied with arms and weapons. Even more important to Israel, it's believed that most, if not all, of the hostages are held in Rafah. While Blinken says the U.S. won't support a major military operation in Rafah unless Israel guarantees the safety of civilians in the city, one Israeli journalist says it remains a high priority.
Tell you what the public opinion in Israel believes in. It believes in full victory over Hamas. You see it in each and every poll. The most persuasive thing for Netanyahu to do as a politician is to defeat Hamas.
Israel is also waiting to see if the International Criminal Court will issue arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and other top Israeli military and political leaders for war crimes. International legal expert Andrew Tucker told CBN News the ICC move seems designed to pressure Israel at this time.
And to come out right now with an announcement, which has apparently been leaked, but they've informed Israeli leaders, or Israeli leaders have come to the knowledge that this is likely, I think is highly problematic. It's stigmatizing Israel. It's criminalizing Israeli leaders.
The ICC is apparently also investigating Hamas for war crimes. In the U.S., at Columbia University, demonstrators defied another deadline to leave, and some have now taken over a university building. University officials say students who refuse to leave will be suspended.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now. Chris, Netanyahu is now promising to invade Rafah, whether there is a deal or not in terms of a ceasefire. Could that assault begin within the next 72 hours, possibly?
Yes, Ephraim, it could. It seems like one of two things is going to happen. Either right now it seems Netanyahu says regardless if there's a deal or not, they're going into Rafah, and what impact that's going to have on Hamas as it negotiates this particular deal remains to be seen. We know that 2 battalions have been called up, some reserve battalions, and so they're ready to go in, and we'll see exactly what's going to happen in the next 24, 48 72 hours. There had been a sense for many that any sort of invasion or incursion into Rafah would be after Passover, which ended yesterday. Hamas, by the way, is really fighting for its survival. If they lose in Rafah, they've lost the war. That's why they're desperately trying to hang on, using those leverages, the hostages as leverage They just released another propaganda video of 2 hostages yesterday. And actually, also, they're hoping those student protests in Columbia University and other college campuses are going to help shape public opinion and maybe influence the Biden administration.
Chris, what's the belief there about what it would mean for Israel if Hamas is allowed to survive in Gaza?
Well, it's going to have a practical implication. For example, tens of thousands of Israelis, they simply won't go back to the Gaza border if they know that that Hamas is still there to maybe fire rockets again like it has since 2007. So if Hamas survives, it would claim victory and could actually rise again there in Gaza. One key element in that report was the lifeline of those tunnels on the Egyptian border. Some believe that might have been or should have been attacked in the first place because that's really the lifeline for Hamas, where they get their weapons and many of their supplies. But Israelis overwhelmingly support the goals of the war, Ephraim. If there's anything I've heard from Israelis, sometimes they don't think Netanyahu is hawkish enough in prosecuting the war. So there's a lot of support here to finish the war, which means going into Rafah.
Netanyahu has reportedly asked President Biden for help in holding off these arrest warrants from the International Criminal Court. How deep is the concern in Israel about these possible charges against Israeli leaders?
Well, it's a major concern, Ephraim, and not just Netanyahu and other top leaders like the head of the IDF, but it could go to IDF commanders, even individual soldiers. And a lot of Israelis feel this is just one more attempt to isolate and delegitimize Israel in the eyes of the world. One more front that it's fighting, not only Hamas, Hezbollah, and others like the Houthis, but also in the international arena. They take this very, very seriously.
Here in the U.S., these protests on college campuses continue to make headlines. I know you talked with a Jewish student at the University of Michigan. How did he describe what it's like on his campus now?
Well, Ephraim, he says it's scary, uncomfortable, lots of chants from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. He was talking about bullhorns in the library. And as he was saying, it's really challenging to be a student, particularly at the end of the semester, to study and focus. He worries about wearing a Star of David and says that Jewish students are being marginalized. And he, for one, hopes the University of Michigan will take action like a lot of others feel like in universities from coast to coast.
You also talked to an expert about who's behind these campus protests. What did he tell you?
Well, he said there's signs that, and this is Dr. Jay Green from the Heritage Foundation, says some of the funders include the Soros Open Society, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and he actually says there's people linked to foreign organizations that may be involved in the training and the talking points. He talked to common signs among many of these protests. Sometimes they have the same tents. They're also set up in public places of the university. They're shutting down normal operations. The timing, he said, as well, during Passover, which disruption to Jewish students. And also, you know, I hadn't thought of this when I was talking to him, Ephraim. It really disrupts the upcoming commencement proceedings in just a couple of weeks for many of these colleges and many of these students from the Middle East. So a crackdown, actually, in terms of the administrations there at the universities, may actually jeopardize some of their foreign funding. And we're not over yet, it seems, Ephraim. Many of these protests seem like they'll be heading to the Democrat National Convention later this summer.
Oh, so much going on. What can we expect this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have a special program on Iran. We talk about the dangers of its conventional weapons, but also their nuclear programs as well, and examining how close Iran is to a nuclear weapon. The head of the IAEA said not too long ago they may be weeks away from getting enriched uranium that's military grade. We also talked to an artist who we've talked to him before. He's setting up murals here in Israel to celebrate the Iranians' quest for freedom. And we also have a story about the ancient ties between Persia and Israel. Some people may not know that really for many thousands of years there had been good relations between Persia and Israel. Some people hope that the Cyrus Accords, like the Abraham Accords, will bring these two nations together once again.
All right, Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem, thanks as always for your insights. Stay safe and know that many people are praying for you and our team there in Israel. I want to remind you at home that you can see the latest from Jerusalem Dateline tonight on the CBN News channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, or you can watch it on YouTube. Despite the ongoing warfare in Gaza, thousands of Jews made a special visit to the Temple Mount over Passover. The faithful came from around the world to pray at the Western Wall and to receive a special blessing. As CBN's Julie Stahl explains, the focus was on the hostages and their families.
More than 30,000 people took part in the Birkat HaKohanim, or priestly blessing. They also cried out for the hostages' return and peace for the state of Israel. Jewish people from all over Israel and around the world came to the Western Wall today to bless and to be blessed. This year, they're also joined by some of the families of the hostages.
We came to the Kotel to do the priestly blessing, so we were invited here by the rabbi of the Western Wall to come and hear the priestly blessing and to pass on the power of the blessing that was here today to Eliah and all the hostages that are in Gaza.
In the book of Numbers, God gives Moses and Aaron these words for the children of Israel. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. While the Aaronic blessing is a daily part of Jewish prayers, this public tradition happens twice a year, during Sukkot and Passover. Jewish men believed to be of the priestly line proclaim the blessing. The last collective blessing happened during Sukkot, just days before October 7th. That day, Hamas terrorists wounded and kidnapped Siggy Cohen's son, Eliah.
The prayers that we are praying, they are drawing all the hostages to return to us. And that's the most substantial thing, because only the Holy One, only our Father that is in heaven, can return them to us.
In addition to the blessing and prayers for the hostages, prayers went up for the more than 100,000 Israelis displaced from their homes, the wounded, families of those who died, IDF soldiers, and the security of Israel.
We are praying that in this month of Nisan, that is the month of redemption, when the people of Israel were redeemed, and with the help of God, they will be redeemed again. We pray to God that he will redeem all the hostages, the daughters and sons, will return to their homes healthy and whole, with the help of God.
Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich thanked God for standing with Israel during the Iranian missile attack. He added, God performed miracles for Israel when he brought them out of Egypt, and Israel must remain thankful. Julie Stahl, CBN News, the Western Wall, Jerusalem.
Coming up here in the U.S., shock and tragedy in North Carolina Monday as 4 law enforcement officers are killed in a shootout, as a community east of the city of Charlotte was in the grips of a very tense and dangerous situation that stretched more than 3 hours. We're going to bring you the story when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Welcome back. 4 police officers serving a warrant for a felon wanted for possessing a firearm were killed. 4 other officers were wounded. It happened in a shootout in North Carolina Monday, including members of the U.S. Marshals Task Force and a Charlotte Police Department officer, when they attempted to serve a warrant to the convicted felon. George Thomas has the details on the story.
It's the whole force coming.
It was one of the deadliest attacks on U.S. law enforcement in decades. 8 officers shot. 4 of them died.
It was like pow, 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 pow. And then by the time I could turn in, pow, 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 pow.
Monday afternoon near Charlotte, North Carolina.
He just said 4 cops got shot. Yeah, they did. Oh, my.
Officers with the U.S. Marshals Service Task Force attempting to arrest a felon wanted for illegally possessing a firearm encountered the suspect in his front yard with a gun.
Shots fired at officer, possibly one down. Correction, 2 down, subjects barricaded himself.
When they approached that individual, they were met with gunfire. Officers returned gunfire and struck the victim.
As officers moved closer to the house, they encountered more gunfire.
As officers approached that individual, they then received additional gunfire from inside of the residence.
Police immediately cordoned off the area just east of Charlotte, deploying SWAT teams, police helicopters, and a swarm of local law enforcement, all with guns drawn surrounding the home.
I stepped outside my door, police were running by, and then ambulance started coming in, and they were just going everywhere.
Neighborhood schools were placed on lockdown.
We were at the track, and we could hear a lot of gunshots.
Police descending in from all directions, even having to use a neighbor's home as cover.
They used one of our bedrooms to set up a U.S. Marshal sniper in just to get a point.
The standoff ending more than 3 hours after the attack began, with SWAT teams using armored vehicles to ram into the home. A woman and a 17-year-old male who had barricaded themselves inside the home were arrested. 3 members of the U.S. Marshal's task force were killed, among them a deputy U.S. Marshal.
The families of these officers who've lost their lives this afternoon are in shock and despair.
A 4th officer, Joshua Iyer, who had been with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department for 6 years, also lost his life.
He's survived by his wife, Ashley, and his 3-year-old son, Andrew. We'll always be indebted to Officer Iyer for his bravery and his sacrifice for this profession.
4 other officers were also injured.
Today we lost some heroes that are out to just simply trying to keep our community safe.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Still ahead, we'll explore the question, what do parents do when one of their children decides to change genders? We'll see where the parents of a transgender child are finding hope and help right after this. The United States Supreme Court ruled an Idaho law outlawing gender transition care for minors can go into effect for now. That is good news for many parents whose children are questioning their gender. In some areas, the church is providing support for these families, with ministries offering resources and other practical help. Paul Petit brings us the story.
This is Jonathan West, who is now Jenna.
It came from nowhere.
Even in Christian homes like Melinda's, gender identity and transitioning is surging.
My son was gone, and this person in front of me was going to be changing, and it wasn't the person I knew.
Long hair, nails, hormone therapy, all part of Jonathan's transition process.
They went in and they took 2 inches off of each side of his collarbone, and they closed those together so that his shoulders would not be so broad.
Melinda can't figure out how she missed it. She says Jonathan grew up as a typical boy, playing baseball and attending youth group.
We really struggled on how to, as Christian parents, address this.
Jean and Anita Eggman are helping parents like Melinda. The couple leads a Christian support group at Cross Church in Springdale, Arkansas. Created to guide parents with same-sex attracted children, 40% of the group now includes parents of those who identify as trans.
It's basically helping parents navigate through all this, maintaining their faith, and being able to stand on the Word of God, but also show the love of God to their loved ones.
What we have seen, it's very unusual that someone reaches out for a support group right away. A lot of times they just try to work through it by themselves.
About Hope is part of the National Hope Restorative Network. Jean and Anita's group meet confidentially every week in this room. Many join online from across the nation, and all of them are given the same tools, now helping Melinda deal with her transitioning son.
When she first came to us, within the first few weeks, we were going through boundaries, creating healthy boundaries. And I remember her saying, I don't think I have any healthy boundaries. I don't have any boundaries.
An online resource for parents is called parentsofrogdkids.com. ROGD stands for rapid onset gender dysphoria.
I would say that every parent goes through, like, what did I do wrong? I certainly did.
Started in 2017, the organization now has 3,000 members worldwide. It offers information to also help parents screen therapists who will not simply affirm their child's gender dysphoria.
If you go with gender therapists and they say, I'm confused, and they say, well, you're trans, and your problem is because your parents don't affirm you. Okay, well, that's just bad therapy.
Melinda's support group has taught her what she's up against and how to navigate her relationship with Jonathan.
What we see now is that how strong she's gotten, and
That's awesome.
She has learned it's okay to say no.
He won't receive gifts from me because I won't buy him anything pink.
In a culture that celebrates the transgender movement, this can be an uphill battle for parents. Through proper support, however, people like Melinda are learning to cope and trust.
They can't change them. And so in their Christian faith, they have to fall back on that the Lord is the only one that can really change somebody.
I am hoping and praying that as he learns who he is, he will learn who he is through Christ.
In Arkansas, Paul Petit, CBN News.
We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day ahead. Stay with us.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I pray blesses you, and I hope that you'll post, tag, tweet, and share it with those in your circles of influence. The past is the past. Make peace with it and forgive yourself. The past has no power over your future when you place your trust in the hands of your Heavenly Father. With that word, know that God has a plan for you, and He's standing ready to forgive and to guide. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That is cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll make this a terrific Tuesday and come back and see us tomorrow.